Cowan. Welcome to the Cameron Journal Newshour. We have a very full week of news. We're probably not going to get to everything, particularly the deep dive that I want to do on a new survey from Beyond MAGA that gets into some of the interesting opinions of MAGA voters and kind of how the coalition breaks down. Did not have a chance to did not have a chance to I want to really dig into that because there's interesting stuff in there. And it kind of shows some of the cracks that I've been seeing in the Trump coalition. I think because it was always very diverse to start with. But anyway, we're probably not going to have a chance to get to that maybe next week. But we have a lot of stuff. We have the Pope, we have Melania, we have Orban in Hungary. I have a crypto thing I need to talk about this week that I said I would talk about for a while. All this type of thing. Yeah, so many things. So I'm going to remind you to sign up for the newsletter, CameronJournal.com/newsletter, or CameronJournal.substack.com. Sign up for the newsletter, and you can get the best of the Cameron Journal delivered to your inbox every week, including this past weekend, a back and forth I had with David Beckmeyer about MAGA voters and hillbilly elegy. It's called MAGA Elegy, and it's on CameronJournal.substack.com and CameronJournal.com. Under what's new this week at the Cameron Journal, and there's so that you get that directly delivered to your inbox, including the Living Joke, this week's interviews, all this type of thing, and we have some good interviews this week. Last week we had two on one day that wasn't supposed to happen. We had a slight scheduling error. We had Frank Spring with Why the Democrats Don't Control the Narrative and Rural Voters Are Fear AI. We had Real Collusion, Why the Rich Hate America with Stu Stromwasser. And then we also had Candace Lynn Talmadge on talking about vulnerability. And then this week tomorrow we'll have 51% with author and TV writer Matt Whitten. And then we'll also have this week The Rise of India with Kanwal Rekti, which is really cool. And we have some really great interviews and things coming up that are quite exciting. So if you want all that delivered to your inbox, all this type of thing, CameronJournal.substack.com or CameronJournal.com/newsletter. Both locations will get you to the same point. And if you want to see all the latest from me, you definitely want to follow me on social. I'm at Cameron Cowan everywhere except TikTok and Blue Sky, where it's at Cameron Journal. And we'll be off and running. So let's not waste a moment longer. Let's dive straight into the headlines. So let me do this. And come on. Oh, yeah, come on. There we go. And let me get rid of this and get rid of this. And this is from The Living Joke, which is the last overlay I do before before I have a chance to change it back around. And we're going to dive right into the proof of intent article that I wrote based upon a new crypto thing that I've recently found out. Over here at medium.com, I had recently been made aware of a new company called Relief. This isn't sponsored by anything. A contact of mine told me about their new technology and what they're doing. And I found out it's actually connected to the earliest days of crypto and actually making blockchain useful. And it says here that, here's what I also knew, and this is true. The blockchain idea was really good. That's the part everyone missed out while chasing crypto fortunes. The technology underneath had potential. The hype on top was garbage. Now, the man who invented the cryptographic foundations that made Bitcoin possible just announced something that validates what I've thought for over a decade. And almost nobody's paying attention. David Chaum doesn't need an introduction in cryptography circles. If you're not a blockchain historian, you probably don't know his name, but you should. In 1982, 26 years before Bitcoin, Chaum published a dissertation entitled Computer Systems Established, Maintained, and Trusted by Mutually Suspicious Groups. That paper proposed almost every element of the blockchain protocol that Satoshi Nakamoto later summarized in the Bitcoin white paper. The only thing missing, proof of work. That was invented till 1993. A year later, in 1983, Chum invented blind signatures, the cryptographic primitive that made anonymous digital cash mathematically possible. Money could flow tracelessly from bank through consumer and merchant, then back to the bank. He wasn't theorizing. In 1990, he founded DigiCash in Amsterdam to make it real. The first electronic payment was sent in 1984. Bill Gates wanted to integrate eCash into Windows 95. Gates offered $100 million, but Chum asked for $2 per copy of Windows 95, sold instead. That was the end of that deal. And then, fast forward to today, um, what has happened here is David Chum is now partnered with a man named Chris Cerdak to create what's called Relief. And they're doing what's called proof of intent. And so the idea here is that we need to be able to tell what's the difference between AI agents and actual people agents. It says here, Chom's approach offers something rare, a way to verify identity and humanity without centralized control. A blockchain is theoretically impossible to hack. AI can't change the ledger in its own favor. At Relief, they're using idle time on smartphones in Latin America and Africa to provide the proof of intent. That's compelling for the future. This could be how you store your digital ID across the internet, and how you access content. How you prove you're human when it matters. Financial, obviously, is the biggest one. Lots of other things. This isn't going to be something that's going to be like rolled out tomorrow, but it is coming, and it is quite a interesting idea of this sort of decentralized digital governance and proof of humanity. And I think that obviously Trump's been working on this a long time, and this type of proof of intent could be the moment blockchain actually serves an actual use that will actually make the internet a better place, tangentially speaking, especially given that digital ID is coming, whether we like it or not. And I'm not a huge fan of digital ID, but it's coming. Anonymity is going away. This could be a new way of, one, deciding who AI and who isn't, and most importantly, a way to decentralize the management of ID, all this type of thing. I love this bit. I love me sometimes. Think about what this solves. In a world where AI agents can pass as human in digital spaces, how do you verify someone is who they say they are? How do you prove they exist in temporal reality? Blockchain becomes the verification layer, an open public ledger that confirms humanity for certain transactions, tasks, even dating. This is how humanity fights back against machine deception. And it's I always knew blockchain would be something that we would find an actual use for it. And I think this proof of intent and sort of decentralized ID to separate who's human and who's AI is going to, for security purposes, become an extremely important part of the conversation of things moving forward. And I wanted to talk about this, get this in your awareness. They're starting with some early pilot projects and fundraising, all this type of thing, but I think this could be, given where things are going with AI, with blockchain, with digital ID, this company could be poised to be a major player in all of this. And I'm just impressed we now have a real use for blockchain technology that's not another sloppy crypto. We're going to get into Trump's crypto drama a little bit later, but I think this is really exciting. I would check it out, and just just kind of keep an eye on it. It's something to kind of bring into your awareness a little bit. Yeah, there's Chris Cerdak and Smoke Wallen. They're really great, and yeah, they're working to fundraise and make this real and roll this out in a big in a big way. I was really impressed by the article Michael Susan wrote that was kind of what I was riffing off of. And it's it's talking about like the kind of the second blockchain revolution where blockchain becomes this verification layer. And so I kind of took that and I was kind of like, oh, I've been waiting for this. Like, I was hoping this is what blockchain would do and would work. And so I was very excited to see this, and so I wanted to bring it up and kind of let everybody know this is coming. And one would argue it's here. And when someone like David Traum is aligned with it and is involved with it, and Chris Cerdak is so great, he used to work on the space station, all this type of thing. It's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. And I love the Traum quote: "Proof of intent is everything I hoped blockchain could be." And I couldn't agree more. Mr. Traum and I had the same idea. So, um, so if you're a crypto person, blockchain person, this is very exciting news. But I wanted to let everybody know about that. Now, let's move on quickly to the situation in Hungary. So you may have heard or may not have heard Viktor Orban, who's been the bombastic far right leader of Hungary for 16 years, was ousted last night by someone who actually used to be in his party. And who has oftentimes very similar views, sort of thing. But who is now going to be president of Hungary. There's probably not going to be a lot of change in Hungary's policies, but but there's definitely, I think it will be interesting to see how the dialogue around some of this changes. With Orban out of power and a different party in power. And so it'll be very interesting to see how this develops. The party from Peter Magyar, Tiza, has gotten well more than a majority in the Hungarian parliament. And so they'll be able to pretty much pass whatever they want rather, which is really really great, so for them anyway. So yeah, and I was just kind of looking over the blog on The Guardian. It says here that oh my goodness, yes, I'm not using an ad blocker, but thank you. There's excitement and disbelief on the streets of Budapest after record turnout, sort of thing. And it says here that I partied all night, he said. It was crazy. I thought Fidesz was going to win. No, I'm really hopeful. It was a hint and mix of excitement, disbelief, and hope that has gripped much of Hungary after 16 years of Viktor Orban's efforts to transform the country into a petri dish for liberalism. Hungarians overwhelmingly cast their ballots to oust Orban and his Fidesz party from power in Sunday's election. Instead, the record turnout translated into a landslide victory for the opposition Tiza party, in a result that sent thousands of jubilant supporters pouring into the streets of Budapest on a Sunday night. Led by Peter Magyar, the center-right party won 138 of Parliament's 199 seats, giving it the power to amend the constitution and potentially dismantle many of the key pillars that had sustained Orban's illiberal democracy. I am so happy, I can't believe that it happened, said Ava, 37. This morning I was bracing for something to happen, like they would say they found some massive number of ballots that would change the results. Now I'm starting to believe it could be real. The election result was in part due to the mobilization of young people who voted against Orban's government. Many of them had come of age as the country plunged in press freedom rankings, faced accusations of no longer being a full democracy, and became the most corrupt country in the EU. As the results rolled out on Sunday, impromptu parties sprang up on the banks of the Danube, spilling across the city as strangers hugged and high-fived each other in metro stations. People chanted, "We did it," and "It's over," against a backdrop of honking vehicles. Some shooing up lampposts to tear down government posters, this time attacking Magyar and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, that have long been a feature of Orban's government. Amid the excitement, questions continue to swirl about what might lie ahead for the country, including those who voted for Tiza. I feel like we still don't know Peter Magyar so well, said Francisca Dombey, 27, as she walked her dog Charlie. The way he speaks in his speeches, all the rhetorical phrases he uses, they sound very much like the way that Viktor Orban used to speak. And of course, he's a conservative politician, so I'm not sure how he'll be. It was a nod to Magyar's singular history as a former member of Fidesz. He began speaking out against the party in early 2024, alleging that it was rife with corruption and cronyism before launching his own party soon after. As his party rode a wave of discontent over corruption and crumbling public services onto the top of the polls, Magyar crisscrossed the country, holding as many as 6 rallies a day during the campaign as he pledged to repair Hungary's strained relationship with the EU, crack down on corruption, and rebuild the country's crumbling public services. So yeah, I wouldn't say a new era for Hungary, but certainly something very different than what has come before in Hungary, and hopefully new and more freedoms as time goes on and develops. So yeah, it's a hopeful time for Hungary. So, speaking of other politicians back here on this side of the Atlantic, most people have not been following this drama. Wasn't really following it either. They're getting ready to have a primary for California governor, and Eric Swalwell, former congressperson, has suspended his campaign amid sexual assault allegations, and this is juicy. Um, Eric Swalwell, a Democratic congressman from the San Francisco Bay Area, said in a social media post on Sunday evening that he is suspending his campaign for California governor in the wake of allegations that he sexually assaulted a former staff member and engaged in sexual misconduct with other women. The accusations, published Friday in articles by the San Francisco Chronicle and CNN, prompted rescinded endorsements, a criminal investigation, and now his withdrawal from the race. Mr. Swalwell has repeatedly denied the accusations and continued to do so Sunday evening. To my family, staff, friends, and supporters, I am deeply sorry for mistakes and judgment I've made in my past, Mr. Swalwell said in a post on X. I will fight the serious false allegations that have been made, but that's my fight, not a campaign's. The post did not mention his role in the House. Mr. Swalwell, who beat an 80-year-old incumbent for a seat in 2012 and briefly ran for president in 2019, had benefited from higher name recognition than many of his competitors, but the field was, and still is, wide open. A former prosecutor and local politician in the East Bay suburb of Dublin, California, Mr. Swalwell, 45, had in recent years raised his profile as a frequent and vocal critic of President Trump, becoming a fixture on cable news. On Saturday, one day after the news investigations published, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said it was investigating Mr. Swalwell. According to the Chronicle and CNN, a former staffer of Mr. Swalwell alleged that he sexually assaulted her in a New York hotel. Several Democratic officials and more than 50 of his former staff members had called for him to step aside. Representative Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker, whose word carries perhaps the most weight of any Democratic leader in California politics, said in a statement on Friday afternoon that she had spoken with Mr. Swalwell and told him that the extremely sensitive matter should be investigated thoroughly. It is clear that it is best done outside of a gubernatorial campaign, she said. Ms. Pelosi, who said she will retire at the end of the year, has not backed a candidate. So, and it gets into the salacious details, and who else might be involved. It's actually possible, given California's system, that two Republicans might advance from the first vote rather than a Republican and a Democrat, because of how things work in California. But someone. It's interesting. It's an interesting time for these allegations to come out. And as I always say, sort of privately to friends, if someone's going along and their campaign's doing a little too well and suddenly there's some allegations about something, it's usually because somebody's trying to get rid of them. Because the reality is this stuff goes on all the time. It just very rarely gets the press until someone makes sure it happens. More stuff is contrived than you think. Anyway, moving right along. This story I've been sitting on for a couple weeks, but it's really important and I'm ready to get into it now. So this is actually from March 24th. This story is almost a month old. We still won't know what the outcome is for another couple months. But back in March, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments about mail-in voting. It says here, the case is called Watson versus Republican National Committee. It involves a Mississippi law that allows mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted as long as they are received by the State Board of Elections within 5 days of the election. Mississippi adopted this law during the COVID-19 pandemic, but over 30 states have similar laws. Legally speaking, this is a standard application of states' rights. Congress set the date for federal elections in the Presidential Election Day Act of 1845, the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November in every even-numbered year, but it's left to the states to determine how to administer those elections. Obviously, mail-in ballots weren't really a thing in 1845. Indeed, paper ballots weren't really a thing, which I explained in my best-selling... This is Ellie Mistel writing. Explained in my best-selling book, Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws Ruining America. That's an Ellie Mistel book, and it is very good. But as voting has evolved, most states reasonably concluded that people who mail ballots by the federally mandated election day should have those ballots counted when they arrive. Counting mail-in ballots was an uncontroversial practice until Donald Trump lost an election. Trump declared without a scintilla of evidence that mail-in ballots were rigged, and the Republicans have lined up like lemmings to follow Trump off the anti-democratic cliff. Mail-in ballots received after Election Day do not change the outcomes of elections, but they can change the initial reports called out by newscasters standing in front of giant touchscreens on election night, which is that line right there is the whole thing. It's like because and if you listen to the right wing dialogue, people talk about this oftentimes like, well, we went to bed and we were winning, and then we woke up and there was a 4 a.m. ballot dump, and all of a sudden we were losing. Yeah, that's how counting elections works. I'm not saying elections are pure as the wind driven snow, because there's not. Every election, a handful of people are prosecuted for doing something dishonest. Social media gets kind of crazy because different states have different rules. So in some states, people can gather ballots for people in sealed envelopes and deliver them all at once. Georgia's that way. Other states, that's illegal. You can't do that. And so people aren't aware that just because something's happening there that's not familiar in your state doesn't mean it's illegal or wrong. It just means your state doesn't allow it. Or in some cases, nobody does it, sort of thing. Um, and so so the idea that, it's like, well, they can just walk in with a bunch of yeah, because, and some states, like Pennsylvania, don't allow county clerks to count ballots until election day. So rather than pre-counting all the mail-in ballots and starting the evening of election night with something and then counting the in-persons on top of it, you end up with these 2, 3, 4 a.m. dumps of numbers as the ballots finally get taken out of their envelopes and counted. Also, here's the other thing about this. There's a lot of oversight in counting ballots. The number of people in the room, who are their political affiliations, if there's an issue, or a Democrat and Republican have to come over and verify that nothing funny is going on, all this type of thing. Great pains are taken to make the counting honest. It's just that, especially when a lot of the stuff is reported digitally, you end up with these big reports, these big updates and reports coming in from different counties who finally have a number from different counting machines, all this type of thing, to make sure that it's accurate and is verified. And some states have mandatory recounts, and so then that whole process happens. It's complicated. The problem is everyone's like, well, yeah, like on election night, like they predict the winner and that's who's won, and we all go to bed and then we wake up and it's different. It's like that almost was never the case. Is that elections just used to not be so close. And so it still happened, but it didn't matter, didn't change the outcome. Now, in a lot of cases, especially for president, elections are so close, you're winning by less than a percentage point or a percentage point. Donald Trump only won by 1.5% in 2024. Let's remember. Like, all this sort of thing. And so you end up with these, very narrow races where a few hundred ballots do matter. I mean, there was one election, Lauren Boebert won her seat by 400 votes. It was actually weeks before they found out what it was, because they were still counting and verifying and doing recounts, all this sort of thing. That's how this supposed to work. Well, this new case is coming up now, and it may kill kill at least part of mail-in voting in terms of allowing mail-in ballots to be postmarked by election day or still counted. It maybe not has to be received by election day, which many states are that way, but this could definitely be part of the legal case to kill mail-in voting, which is used by senior citizens, is used by the military, is used by people traveling, all this type of thing. And this is on top of the SAVE Act, which wants to end mail-in ballots entirely, because according to President Trump, mail-in voting is rigged. And now that's the right-wing narrative, that mail-in voting is rigged. Even though Utah votes entirely by mail, Washington votes entirely by mail, millions of people cast their votes by mail, including people voting for President Trump, cast by mail. But apparently mail-in voting is only okay when the right people win. And then if the wrong people win, then it's not okay. And that's a pretty terrible way to run a democracy. So, but I love Elie Mystal. He's great. And I love his perspective, and you should definitely get his book. It's really good. And and shout out to The Nation, who never wanted to publish my work. Anyway, moving right along. This story, I was going to talk about it on the NewsHour, but we're just going to watch this together. This is from Fox Business. U.S. workers increasingly trapped in great detachment as hiring slows, report shows. Let's watch a little bit. This is 8 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing.
Every athlete builds toward their next performance.
Oh no, there's an ad. Too. Good Lord.
As the worldwide technology integration partner for the Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games.
U.S. workers trapped, bad economy.
Deloitte. Together.
Here we go.
Progress.
There we go.
It is a growing divide in the labor market. Boomers holding on to their jobs longer, leaving little room left at the conference table for poor Gen Z. New data showing that hiring for workers 25 and under, it's actually down more than 45% since 2019. But for those 65 and older, it's up 80%. Companies say they want day one ready workers. That means, well, less training and fewer entry-level opportunities for young Americans.
I'm turning 64.
Jackie, day one ready. I like that. I like that boomers are back. We'll talk about how sad we feel for Gen Z later. Your thoughts?
Okay, so on the boomer angle, I think this is a function of that we're living better as Americans. We're living longer. We're living healthier. Most boomers that I know are not working because they can't retire. That's part.
To turn woke.
Yeah.
We actually learned a lot of stuff. We actually were forced to write coherently and have some, even if you were, in my case, my brother's the flip side, liberal arts. My brother was math. He became a doctor. He's a PhD and an MD. I became a lowly journalist, ink stained wretch. But yeah. I had to know some math. Like I took a lot of upper level math.
That video was not as entertaining as I hoped it would. Anyway, Gallup released the 2026 State of the Global Workplace report on Wednesday, which showed that 51% of global workers think it's a good time to find a quality job. The sentiment among U.S. workers declined to 28% in the fourth quarter of 2025. That figure represents a notable decline from 46% in the fourth quarter of 2024, continuing a steep downward trend from the 70% reading in the second quarter of 2022. It says here, folks with degrees, they're having a particularly difficult time finding a job. Jim Harder, chief scientist of workplace management and well-being for Gallup, told Fox Business. So there's really a kind of interesting dynamic going on right now where unemployment is fairly low. It's on the uptick a little bit, but hiring isn't happening. The job climate is in terms of people's freedom. They're feeling stuck where they're at. Part of the solution is that organizations need to get better at driving systems of really solid performance management and good communication between managers and employees. When workers feel stuck like they don't have a choice about finding another quality job, Harder said, their engagement will start to drop and active disengagement will start to go up when people lack choice because they're stuck in jobs they don't want. It says here that workers who said they're looking to find a new job reported not getting much of a response, even after applying for multiple jobs, Gallup found. Quote, we do see that people are applying for jobs, but they just aren't getting much response. There's just not much out there from a hiring standpoint right now, Harder said. It's just not a really good time right now to be on the hiring end, and again, unemployment's fairly low, so people are in jobs, but they're jobs that they don't consider to be high-quality jobs. Harder noted that among respondents who say they have the ability to do multiple things, their perception of job climate was more favorable. I think there's a big factor in terms of upskilling related to AI that could be a big component of people being able to find jobs going into the future. It says even though employees have less choice in terms of leaving their employer to go somewhere else, there's psychological turnover, meaning they're not bringing their whole selves to help the organization improve, Harder said. The report also found that the 3-year rolling average of engaged workers declined to 0.31%, with 52% of workers not engaged and 17% actively disengaged. At 31%, the level of engagement among U.S. workers is at its lowest level since 2014, while the share of actively disengaged workers at 17% was also at 2014 levels. By contrast, Harder said the top organizations have 70% or more of their employees engaged, along with managers who are engaged to an even greater extent. So, yeah, and I was hoping that video was going to cover more of what I just read, but oh well. The video is more entertaining, but it's Fox Business. What can be done? So, long story short is, the economy is perking right along, but that's not showing a big uptick in hiring, and ergo, people feel like they're stuck and are staying in different jobs. So, but that idea of the great detachment, we now have this, usually when the economy is doing well and growing, it means more hiring. Now we have a growing economy and the hiring is not happening, and it's especially acute for younger workers. So, as someone told me last fall, if you got a job right now, keep it. So, this little bit from Robert Reich, was a, oh, it's stuck behind the, Substack paywall. Hang on, I'm in the wrong browser. Let me bounce over here real quick and do that because I'm subscribed. And oh no, this is a paid post. Anyway, Robert Reich, why are the wealthy pouring so much of their wealth into politics? I read it before, but I only get one free post. Go read this. I'll put it in the notes. Go read this because it's very, very good. It confirms a lot of what I said in my original essay called How We the People Became We the Corporation. And in that essay, I talk about that for corporations and the wealthy, government became a light item expense. Politics became the cost of doing business. Oh, well, we'll just kind of, if we pay enough politicians, we'll get what we want. And it's that simple, and Robert Reich is confirming it, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. But I forget, so many things are paywalled now, it makes it somewhat hard to do this job sometimes. But anyway, I'll go put that in the show notes for later. Let's get into a little bit of Trump polling data. So let me change my graphic quickly to lousy Trump polling data, and it's bad, especially for his bread and butter constituents. So, new CBS News poll today. Yes, this was from today. Has national poll approve 39%, not bad. Disapprove 61%, slight increase. Lowest second term approval. Trump's net approval on key issues: immigration down by 12, situation with Iran down by 28, new low, economy off by 30, and inflation down to 38. So we have this lovely new poll that was just taken this month. And so, 39% isn't terrible. Trump always floats in the high 30s, low 40s. It never gets truly as dire as like what Biden had in the low 30s, high 20s. Trump always floats in the high 30s, low 40s sort of thing. I do find the falling approval numbers on inflation, the economy, and immigration to be very interesting, which kind of leads to a quite high disapproval number, high inflation being the worst of those. And I think it was also this original post was comparing last year to now. So in February of 2025, he was up 36 with 68% approval. September 2025 was 58% approval. February 2026 had 55% approval, and now April it's 48% approval, 50% disapproval. In a year, it's a net 40-point negative swing. And this is the approval trend among white non-college voters. So when we look at these numbers and look at this kind of the big picture, Trump's in the high 30s, low 40s, where he usually is hanging out. That inflation one is quite troubling. The economy one is concerning for the midterms. Immigration is the least bad, but is still troubling. But then when we look at the comparison for white non-college voters, it's it's quite tragic. The midterms are gonna be the midterms not looking so good. However, there's a lot that could turn this around. I think doing something on immigration could turn the immigration number back to favorably positive. As far as the economy and inflation goes, that number is going to be quite sticky because of Iran. One, it's going to be a long time before that oil productivity hits the market, given how things are going. And we also have you also have a lot of economic headwinds otherwise. So between the energy crisis and other economic headwinds, AI, I think those economy numbers are pretty sticky, which is going to keep overall approval pretty sticky, which means moving this 40-point swing back into the positive territory, you're only off by 4. You could maybe get 2 of those points back if you can do something on immigration, but I think those economic numbers are going to be sticky, and that is going to mean those poll numbers will continue to shift in a non-favorable direction. So, I will say, the disclaimer about polls and polling, I always tell people polls tell us nothing about elections till about a month beforehand, and even then, they're questionable. And I've interviewed pollsters both right from the right and left about this. 2, It's a sampling of some people that we extrapolate out to a bunch of other people based upon who they are. Is it the be all end all? No. Does it mean anything tangible? Not yet. This will tell us nothing about the midterms till about September, October. And I don't read candidate polls or anything like that till about September, October. This is just, it's interesting from a mood of the country point of view. It gives us a framework. And that's about all it can do in terms of letting us know where people might be and how they think and feel about things. And that's about it. So now we're going to get into Trump and the Pope. Speaking of falling poll numbers, Catholics may be leaving the Trump coalition quickly on account of the Pope situation. So Trump attacks Pope Leo as too liberal and weak on crime. President Trump's lengthy post on social media showed there was really no boundaries when it comes to people he might target, including the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. Pope Leo XIV is one of the world's most powerful critics of the U.S. war with Iran. In recent days, he has condemned the worship of mortals with money, the pitfalls of arrogance, and the absurd and inhuman violence unleashed by fighting that has further destabilized the Middle East. His many admonishments over the past week appear to have reached President Trump, who responded to those calls for peace by scorching the first American-born pontiff on social media and then taking personal credit for Leo's ascension to the papacy. Quote, Leo should be thankful because, as everyone knows, he was a shocking surprise, Mr. Trump wrote in a lengthy social media post on Sunday night. He wasn't on any list to be pope and was only put there by the church because he was an American, and they thought he would be the best way to deal with President Donald J. Trump. If I was in the White House, Leo wouldn't be in the Vatican. When he sent the post, the president was fresh off a weekend of attending a mixed martial arts fight in Miami and spending time with supporters at his golf club after negotiations with Iran had failed. He criticized Leo as weak on crime, an insult he usually reserves for Democratic mayors, and terrible for foreign policy. He said that he much preferred the Pope's brother Louis because of his support for the MAGA movement. He gets it, Mr. Trump wrote. The president also accused the Pope of catering to the radical left and then offered a piece of advice to, quote, focus on being a great Pope, not a politician. The antagonistic post showed that there was really no boundaries when it comes to people Mr. Trump might target. The leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics is apparently fair game. Shortly after sending his post on Sunday evening, Mr. Trump disembarked from Air Force One and answered questions from reporters. When asked why he sent the post, the president said that he did not think the Pope was doing a good job and suggested that Leo, quote, likes crime, I guess, unquote. He accused the Pope of supporting nuclear weapons and called him a, quote, very liberal person. And that then, so it gets into more back and forth of all this type of thing, and that gets into the social media situation. So after Trump attacks the Pope, he posts this photo. Now, what impression does one get from this photo? Now, according to Trump today, this morning, I saw a video where he said it thought it pictured him as a doctor. That's what he said. Doctor here. However, that's not the impression it left with many people. Wrong. Here we go. Wrong order. Trump's followers on Truth Social are calling him the Antichrist after his post of an image depicting himself as Jesus, which is what a lot of people took it as. And we have some screenshots. I'm not going to read them all. You can see them here. I deeply regret voting for you. You are sick. I've never regretted to vote more. Idolatry, pride, and false worship. Literal blasphemy. This is going a little too far. I'm 100% done. You have to be joking with this. This makes you feel better about yourself. It's incredibly disturbing. You're not okay. Idolatry, false god, blasphemy, all this sort of thing. So, an interesting thing to happen in the middle of this back and forth with the Pope, and that, you know, that the whole back and forth between Trump and the Pope just seems so silly and unnecessary. I had reported in the newsletter that the Trump administration had threatened the Pope with military action. They had invoked the Avignon papacy the last time a state threatened church against the Holy See, and and there was kind of this they summoned the ambassador of the Holy See to the United States to talk about this, and this has now sparked back and forth between the Pope and Trump, and the Pope responded.
President Trump overnight. I just, what did you think? He said that you were.
And obviously, it's not just Iran, it's
We don't
also
like
immigration.
a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo.
Yes, and then posted this AI photo.
Policy, that fear of the Trump administration.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out now message of the gospel. And that's what I believe I am called to do, what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not looking to make foreign policy, as he calls it, with the same perspective that he might understand it. But I do believe with the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers, is the message that the world needs to hear today.
Yes, a very generous, very papal thing to say. But it's I think this is a lovely distraction from everything. And it also says here that on Sunday evening, Mr. Trump attacked Leo after several influential American cardinals appeared on 60 Minutes, because we know Trump loves TV, to discuss why they had followed the Pope and speaking out against the global and domestic conflicts created by the Trump administration. It's an abominable regime and it should be removed, Cardinal Robert McElroy said during the 60 Minutes appearance, referring to leadership in Iran. But this is a war of choice that we went to, and I think it's embedded in a wider moment in the United States that's worrying, which is this. We're seeing before us the possibility of war after war after war. Several prominent Catholics have come to the Pope's defense after the president's attack. And so this has been all over social media. It's such a distraction. It's annoying that we're even talking about it, and I'm adding to it by talking about it, but here we are. So, it's 10 minutes to the hour. We're not going to get through all of this tonight. Not even close. This also, I got Melania mixed up in all of that. We're probably not going to get to Trump's crypto thing, and we're probably not going to get to the Beyond MAGA. But I do want to read this message from the Pope that was posted on Saturday. Those who pray are aware of their own limitations. They do not kill or threaten with death. Instead, death enslaves those who've turned their backs on the living God, turning themselves in their own power into a mute, blind, deaf idol, to which they sacrifice every value, demanding that the whole world bend its knee. Enough of the idolatry of self and money. Enough of the display of power. Enough of war. True strength is shown in serving life. And the first post is emblematic of the situation. I'm honestly thinking of leaving the Catholic Church because of what you say about Iran and open borders. This isn't about a display of power. This is about stopping a terrorist regime from getting nuclear weapons. Also, you say all you say behind a wall of the Vatican. Why don't you open the Vatican up, tear down your own walls, and let's see how long y'all last with these Muslims invading and destroying everything they touch. Shame on you. I hope we free the people of Iran for humanity's sake. You are on the wrong side of history. I can't believe I'm saying this to our Pope. And so it goes. So, yeah. There is no line of people that Trump won't go after. And so, yeah. So, most of the rest of this is the Justin Sun and the Trump crypto scam. Some of which I can say for next week. The Iran blockade. Iran's IRGC says that, if the United States blocks the Strait of Hormuz, there's going to they're going to block the Bab al Mandab Strait through the Houthis in Yemen, which is on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula. So the Strait of Hormuz is on the eastern side. The Bab al Mandab Strait is on the western side. Most global trade travels there because that's how you get to the Suez Canal. That's how Europe gets pretty much everything. If it gets closed, you have to go around the southern tip of Africa, which adds on 3 weeks to the whole trip. So, and interestingly enough, despite calls for it, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said, quote, "We will not be involved in the blockade of the strait. We are urgently working with France, Spain, and other partners to put together a wide coalition to protect the freedom of navigation. The US cannot dictate how others should manage their affairs." And so that is Keir Starmer's idea on all of this thing. And oh yes, this that video, I watched that video last night. Anyone who criticizes Israel is our enemy. We will monitor you with Google and find your weaknesses and get you fired. If you have a business, we will bankrupt it. So that's fun. We're not going to get into all that, but that's a fun thing to know that's going on. But yes, so there's it's unclear right now if the strait is open or closed. A Thai ship was blown up this weekend because it didn't pay the toll. Iran is still trying to toll. They don't know where the mines are. Some ships are making through, some ships are not making through. No one really knows what the situation is. I can't imagine what it's like to be someone on a ship trying to figure out if you get to go through or not, or who to call or who to email or whatever have you. And the insurance rates just keep going up. Before we wrap up this evening, I'm not going to get into Trump's crypto thing. It was crooked. This guy got burned. That's kind of the long and the short of it. But before we go, we will watch Melania's press conference on why she has no relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. And which she did unprompted. There was no need to do this. She came out on, what was it, Friday, and just decided to drop this. Hang on, let me get some sound going. There we go.
Donald and I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note.
I mean, fair
I
enough.
am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false.
Yeah. So, that was entirely unprompted. There was no reason for her to come out and talk about that or anything like that. We'll save that for next week. Yeah, she just kind of popped off with that one, which I thought was interesting and fascinating and all this sort of thing. So, anyway, like I said, it's been a crazy news day. We've got Iran, we've got the Pope, we've got Trump and the Pope going back and forth. We've got everything going on and happening, and yeah, the crypto thing was crazy. This guy named Justin Sun sent $175 million into Trump's crypto in so financial associations associated with the disabled coin, and that money is gone and is basically gone out to Trump family members and other people in the Trump circle. And he's kind of like, well, that's not fair and not good and all this type of thing. And he's probably right, and there seems to be a lot of receipts for it, but you're the one that invested $175 million in a Trump thing. That, ask anyone he's gone into business with how well that's gone. Like, I don't know that I'd give Donald Trump $5 for a coffee. He'd never pay it back. If I did, I'd give it to him as a gift. Here, Mr. President, have a lovely coffee, courtesy of the Cameron Journal. Thank you so much. Like, thank you for providing a lot of content for my show. I really appreciate it. So yeah, and the Melania thing is so weird. She just comes out on a Friday and is kind of like, I have something very important to say, and as with Epstein, and I'm not associated with it. It's like, I mean, to be honest, ma'am, no one was really that worried about you. There were some people saying, oh, Epstein introduced them, all this type of thing. But if there's one thing we know about Melania, she's the perfect autocrat's wife. What do I mean by that? She doesn't speak unless it's important, or if she feels that she needs to. And the fact that she felt the need to do that should tell us something's up. We don't know what, but something is up. So, I'm going to cut it off there because I've already had a long day. I had a lovely recording with a woman named Regina Linka. She does Chinese art and children's books, and she has a new book coming out on May 5th. I have to catch up on a ton of content. I have not posted videos for you guys in a while. I have new articles I need to put out. I need to organize content for the Cameron Journal. So, I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to go do all of that. And I'm applying for writing residencies for the summer, trying to get another book done. I am busy. So I want to thank everyone for watching. We had a lovely group this evening. So thank you so much for coming. My name is Cameron Cowan. This is the Cameron Journal Newshour. Please catch me online at Cameron Cowan on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, at Cameron Journal on Blue Sky, and TikTok for shorts of the show and other exclusive content that I only post on social. And then if you want to sign up for the newsletter, CameronJournal.substack.com or CameronJournal.com/newsletter, and you'll get the best delivered to your inbox. I will see you back here Wednesday at 4 p.m. Will and Connor will be here for The Living Joke, and we'll have a lot of fun. We have great interviews this week. I mentioned them before, but I'll mention them one more time. Our interviews this week are TV writer Matt Whitten on tomorrow, and then on Friday we have Kanwal Rekhi about the rise of India. And then I would encourage you, they got misscheduled, but I would encourage you to go check out my video with Frank Spring, Why Democrats Don't Control the Narrative and Roll Voters Fear AI, and then my vulnerable moment with Candace Lynn Talmadge, and those are available everywhere podcasts are heard. So make sure to go and check all of those things out. My name is Cameron Cowan. This is the Cameron Journal Newshour. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye now.